This is Derrick Broze. This is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance. I'm here in Standing Rock.
That man is wanted in 5 different countries: Chile, Argentina, Brazil.
We've been fighting a long time. We've all lost so very much. So many loved ones gone.
Don't you fucking tease that horse!
You are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. Above all, stay alive. You have no idea how important you are. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network, and today we are going to continue our look at the words and the danger posed by a man known as Peter Hotez, a scientist, a doctor based in the Houston area where I'm originally from, who has become a loudmouth for vaccinations and a proclaimed expert in anti-science disinformation. And as I've proved in my previous reports, I think he's a threat to liberty because he's calling for people who question vaccinations, shots, or merely just want to have a choice and believe everybody should have a choice as dangerous, and calling for the government to treat them as terrorists. So we're going to talk about all that and more. But first things first, I do want you guys to bookmark my website. If you haven't ever visited it, it's theconsciousresistance.com. theconsciousresistance.com right here. And this is where you can find 10 years of my work, my documentaries, my books, my articles, podcasts, interviews, etc., etc., etc. Lots of solutions on here. So bookmark the website, theconsciousresistance.com. So today what we're going to focus on is a clip of me attempting to ask a question to Dr. Peter Hotez. Let me set the stage for you. Back in June, I happened to be in Houston, and Dr. Peter Hotez was doing a presentation for the World Council Houston. It's an organization that hosts these events where they bring a lot of status, and they often bring neocons and people like Dr. Hotez to speak to an typically older crowd. So I happened to go there, and this is the second time I went to go hear Hotez speak. My plan was to try to question him in person. I didn't get that chance because of just the way the event was set up to really ask him this question in person. But they did have a setup where you could write down questions. And I wrote down a question of that I was actually surprised they read. And I'm going to show you that clip in just a second, explain to you what the question was about. But what I asked was, Dr. Hotez, you throughout the last 2 years, 2020, 2021, even to this year, you've promoted the idea of lockdowns and masks, and he made numerous claims like the idea that people who did not get vaccinated in Houston and elsewhere, there was, in his own words, zero chance they would make it through the coming weeks. And he said things like that, right? He also called for keeping the schools shut down and implementing all kinds of crazy measures, pushing for shots for kids, things like this. So clearly there's, somebody I don't necessarily support. But the point is, and where my question got to, was naming a few of those things, saying you called for this, you called for that, and you were wrong. You were wrong that opening the schools was going to lead to sick kids and teachers dying everywhere. You were wrong that the unvaccinated would have zero chance of making it through these next couple weeks. So why are people still listening to you? That was basically my question. So let me go ahead and play you that clip. And this is it kind of starts halfway through the question. So you'll hear what he's saying, and then Dr. Hotez and his response, and then I'll be right back. Check this out.
Opening schools, that this would lead to sick teachers and students, and you also warned that there would be zero chance for the unvaccinated to make it through 2021. You were wrong on these two fronts. How do you justify this information?
Well, I disagree with the premise. First of all, during 2020 and 2021, the teachers, the principals, the parents were scared, right? And I spent probably at no cost, just giving my time and everything else, talking to teachers and school boards and principals every day. I was on the Zoom call, and not only in Harris County in Houston, but also in HISD, but also throughout the state of Texas, and doing this nationally. I was talking to school systems in New York State, I was talking to them in California, I was talking to them in Alabama, and advising them on what we knew at the time about the virus, how to work with the plexiglass, how to, do the screening. And I did that so we could keep schools open safely. And And I couldn't have worked harder to keep schools, because I'm a parent, right? And I know 4 kids. Don't do it, by the way. And I, as a parent, my wife and I knew more than anything about the importance of keeping kids in school. So we did everything. I did everything I possibly could to ensure that kids get through school safely. The problem was there were peaks, right, during that big alpha wave in January of 2021, where New York City, I think in 1 week, was losing 12 teachers from COVID-19. And the teachers were scared about coming to work. And I was very supportive of the teachers and the teachers union to say, look, during peaks of super high transmission, maybe that's not the best time to keep the schools open, and to reduce attendance in the classroom and everything else. So if that was a mistake, hopefully it saved some teachers' lives too. I mean, they're our heroes, right? And they're getting beat up. They were getting beat up terribly, and they were scared for their lives pre-vaccine. Once teachers started getting vaccinated, then I think you have a lot more wiggle room to do things.
Okay, so what you just saw was that clip, my question being asked to Dr. Hotez regarding, whether or not he should even be listened to because he's been so wrong. So let me show you a little bit of some background on why I asked this question. This is kind of interesting. So this person, Eli Klein, who I have no idea who they are, but they posted, this was back in June 18th, when we have public trials, Peter Hotez should be a focus. He lied about kids and COVID for years in order to keep schools closed, playing a key, quote, expert role in the intentional destruction of a generation of youth. It's all on the record. Hotez's book is fantasy and an obvious grift. And he's talking about, Hotez was tweeting about his new book, which has the working title of Anti-Science Kills. And so this guy was responding to that. Well, then Hotez, he caught wind of this because somebody, Molly Zhang Fast, I don't know who this is, said eventually someone is going to get hurt from this kind of violent and moronic rhetoric. That's what they claim, that the statement right here, which whether you like it or not, I don't see any calls for violence other than saying that when there's public trials, he should be a focus. Like if people are ever held accountable, I don't think that's violent. And then Hotez responds, the weird part, Molly, is that it's not even true. I work tirelessly with school teachers, principals, school boards, advising them on how to keep schools open safely and also to encourage school vaccinations. See, again, this is the problem, though, is he thinks encouraging school vaccinations is a good thing and that encouraging keeping schools open safely, of course, means like masks and all the kind of precautions. So he thinks he did a lot. And then Hotez says here, I certainly did a lot more to keep schools open than the wingnuts and never took a dime for it. Okay, so that all happened. Well, then this person over on Twitter also decides to call Hotez's bluff and say, okay, well, let's take a look at this. So this person, AG, says, absolutely not. It was completely predictable that the people who contributed to the worst public health decision in decades would attempt this type of revision, but no one else has to play along with it. Hotez was one of the loudest advocates for keeping schools closed. Let's take a look at the receipts. Back in the fall of 2020, Hotez was on every news program that would have him wrongly predicting dire outcomes and accelerated transmission if schools reopened. Actual transmission levels were lower in schools than in surrounding communities. And you can see some quick shots here. This is Hotez, August 2020, saying on why we cannot open schools in areas of high virus transmission like in Florida and elsewhere. And guess what? They opened them up and nothing happened. Then here he is again, school openings. I can explain why we can't open schools in high areas of high transmission. My important but difficult interview in the communities with high transmission. It's inevitable that COVID will enter school within 2 weeks of opening school. Teachers will be ill. Everything will shut down. None of that happened. And here he is. He's saying teachers, staff will get sick and blah, blah, blah. So they continue on. Despite his claims being inconsistent with the data, Hotez kept claiming he was representing the real science in his demands to keep schools closed for in-person learning, as he was doing here on Jake Tapper. Then, despite all his warnings in 2020 turning out wrong and data showing in-person learning was relatively safe, Hotez repeated this act in 2021, attacking others for opening schools and suggesting schools being open would accelerate transmission. And it's just a clip of articles. Again, here he is, August 2021, saying this thing again, talking to Don Lemon, saying the same thing. that this is a failure of people in the South and making it political issues. They don't understand how Delta is different from the past viruses. They have not followed what's happened in the last 2 weeks and can't extrapolate. He's got the real science, and here he is again calling for this. And then Peter Hotez blocked this guy, of course. Public health officials like Hotez did extensive harm to children with their data-free advocacy for school closure. So again, if you're hearing this video, please tweet at Hotez. He's blocked me as well. I can't talk to him because we've had our own back and forth, as I explained in previous videos. So yeah, there is just a little bit of that. And the funny thing is, this actually led to a Fox News article, for whatever it's worth. It basically just recapped what I shared with you. Peter Hotez says he did a lot to help keep schools open after pushing against it throughout COVID. And they just talk about how Hotez is out there. He was on CNN saying, different things. And now he's tweeting, I did more than the wingnuts. And then they go through and showing the examples that I just showed. So people caught wind of this. And Hotez, I guess, you see this tweet I'm looking at here. I had to go to the Wayback Machine, archive.org, to find it. It's been deleted by Hotez. So obviously he didn't want people looking too much into this. But my point here, guys, is this. Hotez has been wrong numerous times. So despite him, saying in this clip that I shared with you that, I don't agree with the sentiment, and he claimed that, he tells his story, but he never really answers a question about how he was wrong. I mean, he makes claims about teachers seeing this and that, but that's not what the data showed. So you can trust him if you want. But the final point I want to make, guys, goes back to my previous video on Dr. Hotez, which you can find at theconsciousresistance.com. So let's go over here to our website, search Peter Hotez, and you'll find these both of these videos now, but you'll find my first video, Dr. Peter Hotez is a Threat to Liberty, that I did in August 2021. And I encourage you to watch this video because I show how he's been writing for a while, and apparently he's working on a book, really calling for there to be like a government agency that treats anti-science aggression as terrorism. And now I want to show you one more clip from this. This was from another conversation, part of the conversation where Hotez is explaining this. And listen to how he consistently tries to connect I don't even know what to call it. I don't like calling it anti-vaccine movement, but the vaccine hesitancy movement, the bodily autonomy movement, because that's the thing is, they try to put this little label, anti-vax. It's a broad group of people. I've met all kinds of people, parents and children who do vaccinate, but they want to separate the schedule. Other people who are totally against all vaccinations. Other people who vaccinate, but they believe in bodily autonomy, all kinds of things. So you can't lump everybody in one category. But check this out.
Vaccine movement, I don't get it. I mean, as I say, everyone's entitled to their views, but why on God's earth the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers are marching at anti-vaccine rallies? There's no logic here, other than the fact that this is kind of another way to exert control. And I think what happened was, a few years ago, maybe because I did such a good job at debunking the autism links, the anti-vaxxers needed a new thing, and they needed to re-energize. They found it by linking themselves to far-right extremism. They created a political action committee. We have our own anti-vaccine PAC here in Texas, Texans for Vaccine Choice. And I think on the far-right side, they welcomed the opportunity because it was a pre-made, ready cohort of people to now adhere to far-right views. So now you're starting, a few years ago, the anti-vaccine groups were not necessarily politically aligned one way or the other. Now they're all totally bought into the far-right stuff.
And just, in balance, especially before COVID, a lot of it was coming from, we might have traditionally thought was the left. A lot of these anti-vaccine groups were stronger, like California, stronger in Portland, stronger in Seattle.
Peace, love, granola. You gotta be careful what
we won't put
into
anything
our vaccines.
Yeah.
And that's still there to some extent, but overwhelmingly now this is a red state phenomenon.
Okay, so that's that video. I hope you guys, see what I'm talking about. He's trying to draw the connection between the Proud Boys and the moms who are against vaccinations, and he wants it to be like this is some right-wing conspiracy, like it's terrorist. This is why this guy is, again, I'll say it again, not only is he wrong, he's been wrong several times, but he's a threat to liberty because he keeps trying to connect this idea that people who want to stand up for bodily autonomy and who don't think the government should be able to force them to take a shot or any other measure are essentially terrorists. So hopefully you recognize why this man is dangerous and will continue to Continue to question him. Please share this video with him. Looks like my camera's about to die. Share this video with Peter Hotez. Tweet it at him if you can. Like I said, I'm blocked. And share this with other friends and family who might believe that Peter Hotez is some sort of saint. Show them the evidence that he's been wrong consistently and that he is dangerously calling for creating government agencies that might treat you like a terrorist, guys. So please think about that. Spread the word. And if you can support me, go to theconsciousresistance.com/invest. Until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, you are free. Peace, my friends.
Since 2012, the Conscious Resistance Network has been an independent media organization focused on empowering individuals through education, philosophy, health, and community organizing. We work to create a world where corporate and state power do not rule over the lives of free human beings. Our motto is leading by example and helping others in their pursuit of freedom. Visit theconsciousresistance.com to find our articles, documentaries, interviews, podcasts, books, and more. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.